You are sitting at a suburban barbecue while everyone is noisily discussing yesterday's match. They scream at the screen, remember the statistics, but you do not care at all. You drink your coffee and feel like an outsider. But science proves the exact opposite. Indifference to sports is not a defect of socialization. It is a marker of a sovereign psyche. Your brain simply refused the collective madness. Let's find out why. Let's begin. The human brain is evolutionarily hardwired to search for cheap dopamine. This is the hormone of anticipating a reward. A sporting spectacle is the perfect dopamine machine. It has unpredictability, a fast resolution, and a bright trigger of victory. When a favorite team scores a goal, the fan in the stands or at the screen gets a powerful neurochemical surge. His brain celebrates the triumph as if he personally performed this titanic work. Physiologists call this process a surrogate success. But in a sovereign personality type, this system works in a fundamentally different way. Neurobiological filter has a high sensitivity to real achievements. Your brain simply refuses to credit someone else's victories to your account. For it, there is no point in celebrating something to which you have not applied your own efforts. Sitting in a Starbucks with a laptop, the independent mind seeks dopamine in the real world. In personal business, coding, creativity, or intellectual pursuit. Sports look like a complete waste of valuable mental resources to such an intellect. Why invest scarce attention in a group of men in shorts when you can direct it toward developing your own life? A fan parasitizes on someone else's success. An independent person builds their own. And this causes a dull irritation in the crowd. The French sociologist Gustave Le Bon described the psychology of the crowd in detail back in the 19th century. He proved a terrifying fact. Within a large group of people, the intelligence level of an individual rapidly drops to zero. The collective mind is replaced by primitive instincts. A sports stadium or a noisy bar during a match is the perfect illustration of this mental regression. A person completely deactivates their critical thinking. They merge with the raging mass in a single, unified ecstasy. This is a legal, socially approved way to temporarily go mad and shed the heavy burden of personal responsibility. Complete mental anesthesia. A sovereign psyche is organically incapable of such self-renunciation. The independent intellect possesses internal boundaries that are far too rigid. It cannot dissolve into a crowd that is screaming in synchronization at a stadium. For it, this looks like a voluntary surrender of one's own mind. Choosing awareness automatically turns you into a loner. But it is precisely this isolation that protects your ego from mass hypnosis. For an independent mind, this surrogate is completely unacceptable. Social psychology describes this phenomenon in detail through social identity theory. The core of the concept is simple. A person seeks to join a group in order to raise their own importance in their own eyes by leveraging the group's massive scale. This is the easiest possible way to make a statement about yourself. It is enough for you to simply buy a cap with a team logo to automatically become part of a massive tribe. You instantly receive an illusion of warmth, a false brotherhood, and a crystal clear coordinate system. But a sovereign psyche despises the concept of a collective we. The independent mind forms its identity exclusively through individual meanings. Its own ideas, personal creativity, complex projects, or deep philosophical concepts. You do not need 11 guys on a field just to feel like a complete human being. You are entirely self-sufficient in your loneliness. And it is exactly this mental sovereignty that the crowd will never be able to forgive you for. Sigmund Freud proved that the human psyche is filled with primitive, repressed aggression. This is our evolutionary heritage. In modern realities, among clean offices, morning traffic, and polite smiles in Starbucks, there is simply no place for this animal energy. Society harshly punishes the manifestation of true force. That is when the mechanism of psychological sublimation enters the stage. Sports become the legalization of violence. On the stadium, a fan is permitted to hate, scream, and manifest rage without the fear of being arrested. Stop for a second and look the truth right in the eyes. How many times have you seen adult, successful men turn into savages over a piece of leather on the grass? This is not a love for the game. This is the scream of a beast locked inside a cage. In a sovereign personality type, this energy flows down a completely different channel. Your intellect directs aggression not toward destruction or empty screaming at a screen, but toward creation. Hidden rage sublimates into rigid athletic discipline in the gym, into uncompromising competition in business, or into the fierce overcoming of complex mental tasks. You do not extinguish your fire for the entertainment of corporations. You burn real obstacles in it on the way to your personal goals. While the crowd drains its strength in the stands, you accumulate it for your own breakthrough. Psychotherapists call this emotional outsourcing, a phenomenon where a person transfers the control of their feelings onto external objects. The majority of ordinary people in the suburbs live in a state of dull, suppressed depression. Their personal lives are monotonous, predictable, and devoid of vivid victories. The sports draft becomes their only source of intense emotional experiences. They literally rent someone else's emotions because their own shattered and atrophied in office cubicles long ago. This is a fatal escape from reality. When your team wins, you experience genuine happiness, but your own life does not change by a single iota. You stay in the exact same place, with the exact same problems and debts. A sovereign psyche chooses radical honesty. The independent mind refuses to live in a mode of emotional parasitism. If you feel bad, you do not drown out this pain with the victories of strangers. You live through it, analyze the causes, and transform the internal crisis into fuel for real change. It is far better to feel the cold emptiness of reality than to warm yourself by the bonfire of someone else's triumph. The method of a mental surgeon requires the courage to look at your own life without anesthesia. At the core of indifference toward sports lies a fundamental difference in cognitive styles. Psychologists classify individuals by their inclination toward abstract or concrete thinking. A sports competition, for all its tactical complexity, is deeply concrete. It is restricted by the rigid boundaries of a field, a stopwatch, and a crystal-clear physical outcome. It is a closed-loop system with pre-packaged answers. A sovereign intellect is structured differently. It is oriented toward complex, open systems without a final destination point. Your brain instinctively seeks nourishment in abstract worlds. In spaces where you must analyze hidden cause and effect connections, synthesize entirely new meanings, or solve non-linear problems. This is science, philosophy, high technologies, or deep psychology. For an independent mind, watching a ball looks like a monotonous, repeating cycle. The psyche is simply conserving its energy. It refuses to waste its processing power on someone else's movement patterns. You choose to invest your mental capital into expanding your own horizons. Intellectual sovereignty is a conscious choice to create your own rules of the game, instead of memorizing someone else's. Your indifference towards sports was never a defect or a sign of pride. It is the natural reaction of a developed ego resisting an attempt to force it into the boundaries of a collective surrogate. Your brain simply rejected the role of a passive consumer of other people's emotions and chose the path of an author. It is impossible to build a sovereign life if you waste your scarce mental energy on empathizing with corporate brands. The illusion of false brotherhood is completely shattered. Your autonomy, your loneliness against the backdrop of a screaming crowd, and your rigid focus on personal goals are not a system error. This is your main evolutionary advantage. It is time to definitively acknowledge your sovereignty and begin playing exclusively by your own rules. If this surgical breakdown of the subconscious helped you reclaim your confidence, subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments at what exact moment you realized that sports cults no longer hold any power over your mind. See you soon.